It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome! Hey, everybody. Welcome in. My name is Chris. This is a show that I make for your ears. What's going on? Thank you very much for listening. I hope you're all okay. Spanning the globe. Happy to have all the international listeners that I know that I have. I do not take you all for granted. Thank you so much for listening. I hope everyone out there still wearing a mask when necessary. Let's try and get through this. I was going to say together. Kind of together. I mean, not physically together, but I think emotionally, spiritually together. And actually, before I get to football, here's a quick email. Caleb from Toronto writes in, "Hey, Harris. Just wanted to send you an overdue thank you for sharing your experiences about living solo during this time. I, too, live alone, and it's been a comfort hearing from someone you trust about how they are coping with the general crappiness of everything. Your honesty about your situation this past year has often given me strength that, when those occasional moments of hopelessness happen, to know I'm not alone in this, and for that I am truly grateful. Cheers, and thanks again for your awesome-hattedness." And I thank Caleb very much. It's a very nice email. I don't usually read the nice ones. I get lots and lots of very just not snarky, very nice emails, and I appreciate you all. I do. So I didn't read that out loud because I'm here to celebrate how awesome I am, but rather to make explicit a thing that Caleb is talking about here that has been implicit, which is that it's really hard to have gone through this past year for everyone and to keep going through it. It's not only hard to do when you're alone, which I am, which is brutal. It is. I miss my family. I miss my friends. I miss just going out and seeing people. But for people who are with their family, that's hard, right? Or your roommates, or just whatever circumstance you're in. It's just been tough. And this podcast is about a really dumb topic, but, it can be part of the thing that, makes you feel tethered to the world. If that can be the case, I mean, that's great. That's a reason to keep doing it. I hope you're listening each week here in the off season. Maybe I thought I would start this way because it helps for us to admit it to ourselves. For me to admit it here on the show, it really sucks. It does, it just sucks. It's a huge change. Connection's a lot harder to feel and to come by. I sit here all day, every day by myself, writing a novel. I like it. I'm happy. I think it's going well. I said it last week. You can follow me on Goodreads. Look me up, or I'll put a link in the show notes where I can give you updates about what I'm reading and what I'm writing. But it's just lonely, and connection is not easy, and no matter how alone you feel, I want you to know that at least you can know that other people feel similarly, which, by definition, I spiritually, I hope that means you're not alone. And mostly, let's just all have a huge ass party when it's done. That's what I would say. All right, so off the top, football-wise, let's talk about Carson Wentz, because his trade to the Colts happened after I did last week's episode. I'm going to guess now, it's almost a week later, you probably have heard a lot of people attempt to digest this for you. I'm not sure I have very much definitive to add. I will say I like it for the Colts. I understand why the Eagles did it. I don't think it's a bad trade either way around. I'm not convinced that Wentz was the worst quarterback in the league last year, or whatever someone's ratings say that he was. If you listened to this show through 2020, you probably heard me talk about Wentz and use the phrase fruit of the poisonous tree many, many, many times. I'm sure you did not get sick of it at all. Here's what it means. I just don't think there's a way to numerically or statistically account for the carnage the Eagles suffered these past 2 seasons on offense. I'm not arguing that Wentz dealt with that carnage well, because he didn't. He did that prototypical thing of trying to do too much. He dug holes he didn't need to dig. He made big mistakes. It went very poorly. And not only that, but it's probably fair to argue that once the Eagles were dealing with a completely decimated receiving core and an offensive line that couldn't block, it probably was better that a more mobile quarterback was in there running around. Jalen Hurts probably suited what Philly had better. But when I say fruit of the poisonous tree, I just mean when there's nobody who can get open, there's nobody good who can catch the ball, and when there's no time to throw for such a big percent of the time, I just don't, The argument is always like, well, yeah, he had a lot of injuries around him, but, and I just don't think much that happens after that but is worth all that much analysis. I mean, the Colts have probably traded a first-round pick in 2022, provided Wentz doesn't get hurt or just mysteriously turn out to be Johnny Manziel. And that's a real legit price. I mean, it hurts to give up a first-round pick. It's also a discount from what Wentz would have cost a couple of years ago, and that's right, because of course it is, because there's risk. Because I might be wrong, and this wasn't fruit of the poisonous tree. Like, actually, Carson Wentz is going to spend the next season plus convincing me that he's bad. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's perfect, but I think he's big-armed. I think he's aggressive. I think he's not totally immobile. I think he sees the field. I would rather have him over Jared Goff. Would I rather have Matthew Stafford? I mean, no. For 2021, I'd rather have Stafford, right? I think. I mean, Wentz is 5 years younger. Just like if I was thinking about career, franchise building, I don't know. I might pick Wentz. I think Wentz has more theoretical upside over more years if Frank Reich is just the right guy to fix him up. Although clearly he also has way more downside, which is why, yes, I'm talking myself into it. If I had a Rams roster ready to win and I needed a quarterback, yeah, I think I'd probably prefer Stafford for this year. But I think it loosens the ceiling. It takes a little bit of the ceiling, upward for Indy's playmakers relative to Phillip Rivers. I mean, it clearly gives Jalen Hurts a chance to be really good for fantasy. Overall, I just think it's good. I like it. Like, we talked about Hurts actually as a level jumper on the show with Matt Harmon a few weeks back. So if you haven't listened to that show, go listen to that conversation as well. Hurts might not be amazing for NFL purposes. I just don't think we know yet. But he's got mobility-wise, got a chance to be a late-round quarterback in fantasy who clicks.
Today's kickoff.
Okay, on today's show, speaking of late-round quarterback, my guest is going to be someone who has that as his Twitter handle. He has not been on the show for a good long while, simply just because of schedule conflicts. My good buddy, JJ Zachariason, has returned, and he's going to be my guest here in a moment. He and I are going to talk through the 2021 free agent wide receiver class. JJ is great. So happy that our schedules worked out, and I got him on here. It's going to be fun. I think you're going to like it. I thank you so much for listening today. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. If you've ever thought about getting meal kit delivery to help you skip those trips to the grocery store and make home cooking easier, I can recommend HelloFresh. I got my delivery last Thursday, wound up making dinner with HelloFresh both on Friday and Saturday. Friday I made zucchini and mushroom bibimbap bowls with the fried egg on top. Saturday I made portobello and poblano fajitas with pico de gallo and smoky red pepper crema. Obviously, I'm vegetarian, but you can get vegetarian meals, you can get low-cal meals, you can get all sorts of options with HelloFresh. They have 25 plus chef-curated recipes to choose from every week. They send me pre-measured ingredients, everything I need, step-by-step recipes that they take 30 minutes, and you turn in something great. Your comfort level in the kitchen really does not matter. You will make something great, and sometimes it's just nice to get a break from the grocery shopping, the same old recipes, and work in something different into your dining routine. If you haven't tried meal kit delivery, but you've heard of it, and you've thought, well, maybe I should try that. I can get you a pretty good deal to try it out. This is a new code, HelloFresh.com/10HarrisFootball, and use the code 10HarrisFootball at checkout. That will get you 10 free meals in your package, including free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/10HarrisFootball, and use the code 10HarrisFootball.
Today's guest.
Through the day, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine.
And indeed, you have not heard that song, that walk-up music on this show. JJ, I looked it up. July 2019 was your last appearance on the little podcast that could. But it is JJ Zachariason, as promised. You can find him on Twitter at LateRoundQB. You can find him on the Late Round podcast, which is great. I'm a subscriber. You can, of course, find him with our mutual buddy, Danny Carter, on the Living the Stream podcast. I'm a subscriber. JJ, hello.
Hi, it's been like I said before we hit record here. I feel like this is like the Titanic meme of the old woman who was on the Titanic, and she's saying it's been 84 years. I feel like it's been that long, since we've talked. The pandemic's gone on, and things have just been absolutely insane. But it's good to hear your voice.
Yes, sir. And like, let's, I've asked you several times, probably verging on many times, I'll text you and go, hey, can you do it? And of course the problem, and that was the problem. I mean, I said this to you before we talked like half hour before we started recording. It's a great indication of your success in your career and Denny's success in his career that you're both a lot harder to get because you just have a lot more going on. And especially in season, I'm really limited. I'm making the show myself, so I have to it has to be in this window, and you're like, it's a window I can't do. And I mean, Liz has been that way. Like, there's just a bunch of guests who are listen, I get who I can get when I get them, but I love everybody. You're here to talk about some free agent wide receivers, but actually before we get there, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball because I saw a column and I can't remember where it was. That was something about the death of the late round quarterback, how 2020 proved beyond measure that the idea of waiting on quarterback is now dead. All of the stud running backs and wide receivers, well, I don't know, JJ, they all get hurt, and quarterbacks are the one where you put your money and they're safe. This is obviously heresy on your shows and on my show. I'm just going to ask you, sir, what your response is.
Yeah, so what's interesting is I actually felt really good about how I like many fantasy analysts got plenty wrong last year. I did an entire podcast on the things that I got wrong. But one of the things that I feel really good about was my approach to the position entering last year, because if you looked at the ADP of quarterbacks, historically, if you look at like 2011 through 2019. If you take a look at if you chart ADP versus postseason results, so put ADP on the x-axis and put postseason result, how many points they scored on the y-axis, the correlation between the two was literally zero among top 12 quarterbacks. So a QB 11 would have just as much of a chance hypothetically to be the QB 1 as the QB 1 in a given year. And that's just, there's just massive turnover at the position that, as you sarcastically noted, with this question, that people view the position as this like really safe position, but it's not at all. But the difference in last year was that it was very clear that the market and the way that people were viewing the quarterback position, they were finally putting more of a premium on rushing than they had in the past. You had Josh Allen as like QB8-ish, obviously Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, all those guys who can, Lamar Jackson, of course, all those guys who can do something with their legs and bring that juice. And the one interesting part of the strategy now is the fact that that's likely to be a little bit more sticky and sustainable year over year than what we're going to see through the air. And what I mean by that is, the thing that fluctuates most year over year at the quarterback position in fantasy is really touchdown rate. It's really just, whether a guy has this unattainable and unsustainable touchdown rate that he had one year. Like Aaron Rodgers this year, he's not going to have the same touchdown rate next year. It's just not going to happen. Not to say that Aaron Rodgers is bad. It's just the way that math works out naturally. But the one thing that is a little bit different is that, rushing is going to be able to provide some sort of floor for a lot of those same guys. Now, do I think that means it's the death of the late round quarterback? No, because you still have players that you're going to be able to draft late that are still going to be Ryan Tannehill is still going to be a late-ish round quarterback. I mean, if we knew factually that Joe Burrow was 100%, he has some mobility to him and he has some upside just given the weapons around him, et cetera. And then obviously there's this influx of quarterbacks coming in this draft class that all have mobility. And so I think maybe this is a 1-year window where people are going to feel a little bit better about getting a quarterback in round 4 than they did, historically. But, to say that last year just changed the landscape completely, to me, that's just not the right way to really approach fantasy. It's way too reactionary.
Well, and I'll just add that, of course, the position looks more stable relative to the other two positions where everybody got hurt.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's just a year where everybody got hurt. Like, what are you supposed to do? They all got... Who did you like, Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley? It didn't matter,
Right.
So, anyway, I like it. Thank you for... I endorse, I co-sign with that statement. And let's face it, if your Twitter handle is at Late Round QB, you need to be given some open mic time to get stuff off your chest.
I really appreciate that. I need that. Anytime I go on a show like this, if someone lets me vent, I'm gonna vent. Yeah, that's
right.
Great.
All right, so we have vented. We're closing the vents. Now the hot air is going to stay in our respective brains, and we are going to talk about free agent wide receivers for 2021. The conversation will be probably less about I want them to sign here, because there can be some of that. That's fine, and like examples of places where they might be worth more, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm here kind of to pick your brain about just how you feel about these guys as players, because we'll find out about their situations somewhere down the road. And it's a star-studded wide receiver free agent class. It really is.
Yeah.
Maybe nobody who's completely without a blemish, but there are some stars here. And I'll start with Allen Robinson, who has spent his career with the Jags with Blake Bortles and with the Bears with Mitch Trubisky. And, I think we would all say he could shoot to the moon were he to land with a real quarterback. Do you feel that way about Allen Robinson?
Yeah, I mean, don't forget Christian Hackenberg either in college. I mean, I don't know if Allen Robinson throughout his entire football playing life has ever had a good quarterback that's thrown him the ball. But yeah, I mean, look, A-Rob's one of the true alphas in the league, who's more of that traditional, just X, right? And a guy, in this league right now, we have this like a wide receiver is not a wide receiver is not a wide receiver. There's just so many different types now. But Allen Robinson at least gives us more of that traditional, X that we've seen in, throughout the years of the league. But, last season, one metric that I like to use a lot in terms of its predictiveness is one that I used for college prospecting, but it works in the NFL as well, but it's yards per team pass attempt for the individual wide receiver. So receiving yards divided by team pass attempts. And obviously, just naturally, if that team has poor quarterback play, then those pass attempts aren't going to be as valuable. But even still, Allen Robinson was 10th within the metric last year. He was 17th the year before that. And those were not on great targets last season. He was among the 32 wide receivers with 100 or more targets. This is according to PFF. Robinson's catchable target rate was 6th worst, which is not shocking. We know that he didn't have good quarterback play. And so, I still think he's got it. I mean, he didn't really show anything, didn't show me much last year to show that he didn't, given his circumstances. And like you said, this is a situation where, we don't want to talk about landing spot for sure, but it's hard to imagine a situation where it's going to get much and dramatically worse than where he's basically been throughout his career. Maybe aside from the DGAF Bortles year that he had where, he was just heaving the ball down the field consistently. I think that almost anywhere that A-Rob would go would just be an upgrade, just given his circumstance.
Yeah, I excited to see him go somewhere else. Hope he goes somewhere else. Agree. I mean, Des Bryant, like prime Des Bryant is what comes to mind when I think about maybe a faster version of that player. Like you said, the pure X, physical at the top of a route. Not, he's not the best at any one thing, but just sort of an absolute gamer. And the problem, of course, we're going to have with all these guys, with even with the best few that we're going to talk about here at the top of these receivers, is fitting them into a landscape that already has 30 other guys who have the potential to be the wide receiver one. That's the league now. Right. But there's absolutely no... I mean, Robinson lands in a good spot. Robinson lands in... with the Chargers. I'm making things up. But we're a place where we like the quarterback. No one would be shocked if he becomes a top 5 receiver, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's the majority, I would say if you're playing probability here, the majority of landing spots, it's going to be an upgrade for Allen Robinson, at least in 2021. Yeah.
Right. And it's going to be tough to take him there because there's just so many other guys who won't have the variable of I'm changing teams and I don't really know how it's going to go, even though I expect it's going to go well. But if someone's going to reach for an Allen Robinson and say, darn it, I'm taking him with the 20th overall pick, I don't think anyone's going to go, you moron. Like, it's probably going to, there's a great chance to pan out. Yeah, he's really, really good. Also very good, but probably in a slightly different way, Chris Godwin. Yeah. The Super Bowl champion, Chris Godwin with the Buccaneers, didn't really have much of a Super Bowl, but had a very nice year. So he had a nice year. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But the notion that he is the equivalent talent of Mike Evans, to me, felt a little bit like the lie was put to that a little bit this year. And of course, that's partly because of the Buccaneers grip it and rip it playbook. That's, let's go down the field, which isn't, Godwin's okay down the field, but he's not Mike Evans. Mm-hmm. But I think to some degree it's about the Buccaneers and maybe the quarterback coming in and saying, all right, well, here's what the pecking order needs to be in order for us to win, which I think I agree with. I think Godwin's a very, very good player. I don't know if I think he's a superstar number one great player, but I wonder if you disagree.
I don't disagree. One thing that I noticed with Godwin too, it felt like there was a sort of like a lack of confidence down the stretch when he was kind of dealing with some side injuries and whatnot. And there were a couple games where he had some really bad drops. I'm not someone who cares much about drops because so much goes into even getting targeted and the skill involved in getting that and earning that target, right? But it was just a really, I feel like he wasn't himself totally down the stretch last year. But yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. I mean, I was always an Evans Evans is just a beast. And I've always been an Evans greater than Godwin, and the way that I view these guys. But Godwin can still play all over the field. I think he's naturally best in the slot. He played about 65% of his snaps there over the last 2 years. And then in 2019, obviously he was second in the league, in slot yards behind only, yards per route run, behind only Cooper Kupp when Cooper Kupp had a great year. And he's just, the thing with Godwin that I love is just what he can do after the catch, from that area of the field. That's something that is not, there's another guy on this list that I think you can make a similar-ish argument, but not to his degree, from the slot. And so that's where I think he wins best. And honestly, we're not like trying to speculate landing spots or anything, but it makes sense that he's thriving in Tampa Bay. And it makes sense that he would thrive in an offense with Tom Brady as well, specifically. So, I wouldn't be shocked. There's a lot of talk around him staying there and sticking there. I think that makes just a ton of sense.
It does. And the franchise tag is on the table, although Levante David also might need the franchise tag so that, one of them might need to get paid. Yeah. And, I think, like, I definitely don't want to short sell Godwin. I felt like a couple of years ago I did short sell Godwin. I think I sold him a little bit short. I didn't really appreciate the extent to which he was one of these monsters. You talked about the different paradigms that wide receivers have. The Deebo Samuel, kill guys after the catch kind of guy. Like Godwin is absolutely at the forefront of that. It's just that a 1,300-yard season that he had 2 years ago in the Jameis year, which was very similar to the Bortles year, frankly. It just doesn't seem like that was ever really a reasonable. It's not who he is, I don't think. I absolutely believe 86 catches, which is what he had that year. This past year he had a broken hand, he had a broken finger or whatever it was. He wasn't healthy and he was disappointing, but we're not allowed to go, you stunk, you were bad for fantasy. He's a really good player. I think the 86 catches is totally believable. The 1,300 yards just does not feel like what Chris Godwin is, but by the same token, he could easily be a double-digit touchdown, red zone dominant, super physical, just if it happens to work out for him. He probably, for me, won't belong, whether he's on the Bucs or somewhere else, probably for me won't belong in that, these are the 12 best receivers for fantasy kind of thing. But again, because, it's this just infinite list of receivers who have the chance to be 3 touchdown makers in any given week, he of course belongs to that group.
Yeah, I think that he's like a classic case of a player coming out who, I always question athleticism as like the main reason that someone like Chase Claypool this past year, right? I didn't know what to really think of him as a prospect. Didn't really fall in love with him because I'm not a firm believer that just pure athleticism is going to automatically translate from college to the NFL. It's just not an easy thing. It's because we see the opposite happen all the time. But obviously, Chase Claypool hits and he looks great, and Chris Godwin's just another one of those players where you can see his testing and the way that he played in college too. You can see that really translating in the NFL, and his physicality that he brings from the slot is really almost unmatched. It's just you don't see a wide receiver like him across the league.
Bespoke Post is sponsoring today. They deliver a box of awesome to upgrade your style, your apartment, and your life. Here's what it is. Bespoke Post has new themed boxes every month that you are guaranteed to like. Style, grooming, cooking, drinking, travel. It's a monthly present to yourself or to a guy in your life who could use a little upgrading. For instance, I am a Bespoke Post member. I get the box of awesome every month. I've gotten a barrel aging kit, which I have used. I make mixed drinks that taste like they've been barrel aged by storing it 10 days in this kit. I've gotten belts. I've gotten a shaving kit. I've gotten hiking accessories. I have to say, getting that little present every month during quarantine kind of has brighten the old spirit. Here's how it works. Go to boxofawesome.com, answer a few questions. On the first of each month, you'll get an email with your box details. If you're not into that month's box, skip it. Utterly no commitment. It's meant to be fun. Get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter the code Harris at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com, code Harris for 20% off your first box. I really do. I love getting mine every month. I think you will too. Okay, we are back with JJ. We are talking about free agent wide receivers going into this signing frenzy that we're going to get in a few weeks. I decided to not talk about all Penn State alums in this list. And in fact, we're going to talk about my guy. We're going to talk about the one I love most.
Yes.
I probably would have put him at the top of the list if I'd made the list. Oh, wait a minute. I did make the list, but he's coming off a big injury, so I couldn't in good conscience put him number one, but it's Kenny Golladay, Kenny G. I believe, are you the coiner of the nickname Babytron? I think you are.
Yeah, I am, but it's amazing because I did it as just a complete joke, and now all of Detroit media despises me because I came up with this awful nickname, and right. I just kept on tweeting about it because it was just bad. It's purposely bad. People, I know that the nickname Babytron is a terrible nickname, but it makes it even funnier that people get so angry at me about it. So I'll see a random tweet from a Detroit beat writer, and they'll be like, whoever came up with the nickname Babytron should have, delete their account or something like that. And then I'll quote tweet it and just be like, yeah, it's me. I'm the guy. But yeah, I mean, Goliday, I'm with you though. I am a massive fan of Kenny Golladay's.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's one where rather than subject him to a lifetime of Jared Goff, the hope is he goes somewhere else. His fantasy stock is absolutely going to have to be leavened with the notion that his season was totally wrecked by injury, and it's a pretty serious injury, and we don't really know what's going to happen, and all the shine that anybody's ever going to give him, hopefully in a new city, is going to have to come with some degree of realism, all right, but am I positive that he won't get hurt again? All right. Am I positive he'll mesh with the new quarterback? There's going to be reasons to be worried, and maybe the way to I don't think we're going to have to me, he's like a pure absolute alpha, one of the 5 best players at the position in the league. So we don't really need to have that conversation with him. Maybe I can since I'm a terrible assessor of what the market's going to do with players, and we don't know where he's playing yet anyway. But even once we do know, I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to be like, oh, the market's probably going to think this, and it'll be the exact opposite. So I wonder, just since you have your finger on the pulse of all things Babytron, are people ready to go back to believe and to draft Kenny Golladay in the 2nd or 3rd round again, given if he just happens to hit it right spot, right time? Or do you feel like there's maybe a sense that folks are burned and there are more stable guys who are going to give you roughly the same production?
I'm going to go with the latter. And the main reason is because I did a startup draft in January and I got Goliday. And he fell, pretty dramatically versus where at least I expected, and versus definitely where he was last year in startups. Right. So at least from that perspective. Now, Goliday did come into the league. He was 24 years old, so he's a little bit older. He's 27 now, I think. So that might play a little bit of a role. But I do think that there's going to be some recency bias involved with Goliday and from the market. So I think in the end, you and I are probably going to have a lot of Kenny Golladay in redraft this next year. It's just it just feels like that's gonna the way things are gonna go.
And of course, we'll do that, and then we'll not feel like we're getting away with something. We'll understand that we're assuming maybe more risk than other people picking at the same, in the same round. The guy who goes before Goliday, the guy who goes after Goliday, those guys will probably come with less risk, but they probably will also come with less reward. And it's funny, like Goliday isn't even quite Mike Evans in terms of speed. Like, I think Evans is faster than Goliday. Golladay's perfectly fine and perfectly fast, and they're both huge. Goliday just has a thing, dude, like, but he just has that thing of, like, if the ball's in the air and there's 3 guys around him, I think he's going to catch it. It's just, there aren't a lot of guys like that.
He's the best in the league at it. He is the best contested catch wide receiver in the National Football League right now. And I feel confidently say that confidently. And then the other thing too with Goliday is, touchdown scoring is random to a degree. But you also, when you have a player who's winning those 50-50 balls consistently, you're going to have an above average touchdown rate. I kind of see, you mentioned Dez Bryant earlier in the show. That's the way that I view him from a touchdown scoring standpoint, where Dez, you could lock in Dez for 3 or 4 years with like a double digit touchdown projection, right? And you feel that way to a degree with Kenny Golladay. The one thing I will say is if they do end up tagging him and he sticks around and he's playing with Goff, I'm a little bit fearful of that. Well, I mean, I think it's understanding. You understand why I would be fearful of it. But Goff is best when things are not breaking down. And Stafford to a degree is decent. At escaping, especially since he lost that weight a couple of years ago. At escaping and not being afraid of making those risky throws. And I would be a little bit afraid of that, of Galladay's match with Goff from that perspective, because I want him to be with an aggressive thrower, and Goff can be that if he's in a good situation. But when things break down, I'm just not as confident about it.
Yep. I mean, there's all sorts of talks about tag and trade, and that feels unlikely. It feels like if usually when teams tag guys, they don't trade them. They usually just hang on to them. Usually the other teams go, well, no, we don't really want to pay him that, and we don't, we can't negotiate with him before we get him. So we'll see. Here's hoping for a change of scenery. I think you were referring earlier when we were talking about Godwin to a Steeler who you probably love like a son, I assume, since you love all of them like sons. It is JuJu Smith-Schuster, who I guess on the day we're recording this, made some noise about how I'm a Steeler for life. I don't know what y'all are talking about. I'm going to be here forever. And I think that's probably news to the salary cap manager in Pittsburgh, but maybe. So this was a bad year for JuJu. It was really by any measure. If the first part of the season, maybe Roethlisberger's a little more aggressive down the field, and we were all like, well, all right. I mean, Chase Claypool made some plays down the field. Deontay Johnson certainly made some plays down the field. Okay, I would understand why maybe JuJu wouldn't partake in that quite as much. But in the second half, when it became obvious something was wrong, that they couldn't really go down the field anymore, something had changed dramatically, and everything needed to be quick and short, and JuJu still didn't go bananas, made me worry.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, they used him it was like Hunter Renfrow, right? I mean, it was just not ideal for JuJu. The thing is, so I think JuJu is a very good slot receiver and a very physical slot receiver and someone who can do damage in the red zone. And he's attractive from that standpoint in fantasy football. And then even, analytically, he was if you look at like stuff like breakout age and stuff, I mean, he was a very, very young prospect entering the league. And he's still very, very young as a result of that, even though his contract's up. But I think that you have to ask the question, why did he struggle without Antonio Brown last year? For the first year without AB, obviously there were quarterback issues, understood, but other players in that offense still, Deontay Johnson as a rookie was fine in that situation. Now, granted, his ADOT was low and they were using him in a non-ideal way, but Deontay Johnson's getting the ball and targets are earned, and they're trying to get him the ball, and that wasn't happening for JuJu. And then what happened this year? What changed this year? Well, the Steelers looked at what happened last year, and I always like to see how teams are intending to use their players. And what they did with JuJu is that they threw him in the slot even more this year. He played like 86% of his snaps from the slot this year, JuJu did. That's his natural position, but it's very hard for me to buy into like straight up slot guys, right? And because generally speaking, yeah, you can be good at that thing. And like we said earlier with like Godwin's great at that thing, but Godwin can still play on the outside well. JuJu hasn't proven to do that consistently in the league. And so that's the fear for me with him, is that he needs to find, of the higher end guys on this list, if you will, he needs to find a specific landing spot that really works for him, because I can see a front office just, being enamored with what he's done production wise so far throughout his career. The fact that he's still fairly young, being enamored with him and just, getting him without the right foundational pieces. But I think he's a player who needs those pieces around him to thrive. Like if he went to like Green Bay, yeah, he would probably crush. But a lot of guys would crush in Green Bay, but yeah. I just think that those foundational pieces sort of need to be there for JuJu, as hard as it is to say, because he's a very fun player. And I hope that he's able to do well.
Yeah, and I don't want to pitch it as this, he almost had 100 catches. He had 800-something yards. So if he had 9 touchdowns, I think 6 of those touchdowns came long after we had all given up on him as a startable fantasy weapon, right? It was the too little, too late kind of. Yeah. It's not like you're a running back doing that, right? If you're the Bears kid, cool. We'll just give Dave Montgomery. We'll just throw you in there. I don't have a lot of other choices. It's either him or James White. But with JuJu, it was just tough to use him when he started to get useful. And I really agree with your assessment. You're obviously watching those Steelers games really closely, and all I can say is if people are going to rag on Deontay Johnson for a low ADOT, I mean, that's JuJu's life, man. That's his.
Exactly.
It's just like that should be, and the answer is to look at them play. Is that JuJu is you're characterizing it right to put him in the Godwin category. He probably doesn't do anything unbelievably special until the ball's in his hands. Mm-hmm. But then he's a killer. He's a crusher. He's really, really dangerous with the ball in his hands. No question about it. He'll make a play and run over a guy, and he can play in the middle of the field, which you don't want Deontay Johnson playing there that much. But Johnson's just open by breathing. He takes one step and he's open. And that's just not true with JuJu. So, do you expect him back? Just you don't know.
I do not. No. I mean, and every beat writer agree. I mean, every article that I've seen has also agreed with that. The thing with the Steelers and the low ADOT stuff, not to get on too far of a tangent here, but
no, it's fine.
The way the offense operated, I think a lot of blame. Look, Ben Roethlisberger is not great. I'm not trying to defend him per se, but I think that what happened this past year was the offensive line was atrocious. It was so bad. And the way that Randy Finkner changed this offense to sort of make up for that was to throw these quick hitting passes to sort of make up for the run game. And we've seen it with teams in the past, but it was just very, very evident with this team in particular, because over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen the Steelers with one of the best offensive lines in the league, and Ben being able to sit back in the pocket and chuck it deep, especially with Antonio Brown when Antonio Brown was there. So we see this change. And then, there's a lot of people hating on Deontay Johnson for his low ADOT. It's like, this is the way the offense was operating. And to your point, the fact that those balls aren't going to JuJu the way that we would want them to go to him, if, again, goes back to the idea that targets are truly earned. And like you said, Deontay's getting open immediately. Of course he's going to throw him that way. That's a red flag for JuJu, in my opinion. Even though the offense, because realistically the offense is being catered to what JuJu does well, right? And he didn't really still pan out all that much. And so I think that's why, I have some issues, and I really hope that he can find a good landing spot, but I just don't know if that's really going to happen.
One more break to thank Hawthorne for sponsoring. If you'd like to look, feel, and smell your best, Hawthorne's an absolutely great idea. With a short quiz, Hawthorne makes grooming for the modern guy really easy. I have used Hawthorne, and perhaps even more importantly, cousin Josh has a whole bunch of facial cleansers, shampoos, deodorants, and colognes from Hawthorne. And if you've listened to this show for any length of time, cousin Josh is meticulous about this stuff. It is really easy. You start with that quiz. It's a couple dozen questions like, is your skin sensitive? How many times do you shower in a week? How much do you sweat? What's your favorite drink? What's your ideal night out? It's all sorts of stuff. And based on your answers, Hawthorne recommends a full line of self-care products like soap and face scrub, all that stuff, really taking the guesswork away. No more randomly buying a brand you don't even know why you're loyal to. Hawthorne sends you super high quality products tailored to you. Take Hawthorne's quiz today and get started on your personalized self-care routine by going to hawthorne.co and use the promo code Harris. If you use that code, it'll get you 10% off your first purchase. That's HAWTHORNE.co. Promo code Harris. Hawthorne.co, promo code Harris. Okay, so JJ and I are going to go, probably, we've done 4 very big wide receiver names that are going to be very relevant for fantasy, and now we have some other good names here, probably not quite the level of impact, although I'll go a little faster on some of the other guys, but this first guy we can take as much time as we want. It's Will Fuller, who has the added complication of being suspended to start the season, which one assumes will be factored into whatever contract he gets offered. But he is an unrestricted free agent, and there's a whole lot of turmoil in Houston. We don't really even know if Deshaun Watson's still going to be there. And Will Fuller himself, like, wow, you stayed healthy. That's amazing. Oh, wait, it turned out it wasn't that amazing. You were putting something in your body. You were drinking some milkshakes or something. He was doing a lot of squats. So I think you've been a bigger supporter of Will Fuller than I have in the past, but I might be wrong about that. I'm skeptical of Will Fuller, man. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on him for our NFL team.
Yeah, is it more from your perspective, more the ambiguity around like the steroid or whatever he was taking / the fact that he just can't stay healthy, or is it what you've seen too?
Listen, when he's good, he's a pure outside burner. It's just he's not Antonio Brown, prime Antonio Brown. He doesn't really do anything other than run real fast. Like, what's the difference between Will Fuller and Deshaun Jackson, his prime? And I struggle to come up with a difference.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would say, I don't think he's like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but I think that I would agree with you that a player like Fuller is oftentimes way better in real football and for a football team than he is. I mean, you can even look at the splits with Deshaun Watson and his yards per attempt rate and what happens when Will Fuller's not playing. But, I think that he's a better asset for a real football team than a fantasy football team. You can make the same argument for like a Hollywood Brown, right? And so, yeah, I can see that. I can understand that. I mean, the positives, he's been top 10 in the league. He was top 10 in the league last year in yards per route run, 17th in 2019. Some of that skewed though, because of his big playability. And then again, whenever you are that type of wide receiver, you have to be a little bit concerned about quarterback play more so than some other receivers. Like if you're Chris Godwin, you're going to be fairly quarterback proof, just given where you play and what you do. Whereas if you're Will Fuller, you need a guy who can get the ball to you deep, right? Because his ADOT's going to be high. That's the way that people have generally used him and how teams have used him, and understandably so, because he is a burner. So yeah, I would agree with you. I'm probably a little bit higher, but I do think that there are some wide receivers just that we're talking about today that are naturally going to be more dependent upon strong quarterback play and a stronger foundation than other wide receivers.
Yeah, that's a great point. You're not going to want him with Jared Goff. You're not going to want him with Mitch Trubisky when Trubisky winds up once again being the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Haha. You're going to want him with Deshaun Watson, frankly. I just know that even in this, whatever it was, 12 games that was good, and it was good. Of course, it was statistically good, but he would go a long time real quiet, and then fourth quarter, they're getting crushed. They're down 3 scores. There's 2 minutes left in the game, and we go 77 yards to Will Fuller, and everybody goes, "What's the problem?" Which is the way I always felt about Deshaun Jackson. Just I'm not, the ride is never as smooth as the end numbers wind up looking with Will Fuller. And to be honest, I thought Brandon Cooks was a pretty decent. There's like. I thought they were they're almost the same guy. It was just a weird combo to have them on the same team. Well, yeah,
and then they had Kenny Stills at one point. They were just going to run 4 verts every play is what I thought. I thought that was their plan this year, but turns out they used them a little bit differently.
Yeah. So, Houston is in total implode mode, and I would imagine that Fuller actually, now that if Watson goes somewhere else, I can't imagine they're paying full Will Fuller.
No.
I can't imagine it. In fact, I would think Cooks might get cut at that point. Like, I don't,
I wouldn't be. If Watson goes somewhere where a team needs a wide receiver, I wouldn't be shocked if Fuller tries to stick with Watson in some way. I mean, that's all clearly speculation, but I do think that I do think that the quarterback in this situation just matters more than it would in other situations.
And Watson is a great one. Nobody's going to argue that on this show. He's a absolutely great player. All right, so some other names, and we'll do a little more rapid fire here just to get your general thoughts. I've seen people saying for the 1800th consecutive offseason, Curtis Samuel is such an underappreciated player. And listen, he was important to that team for they didn't win a lot of games, the Panthers, but they were in every game practically. They were and he was a big part of it. They always made sure to give him 2 handoffs, a jet sweep, and a wide receiver screen every single week. Right? He actually played some running back, and he succeeded in that regard. Nice Swiss Army knife. I personally, when he signs with Washington or whatever, I'm not going to go anywhere near him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The one thing that I think that's interesting with Samuel is that last year, before the regime, the coaching change, they were using him as like their deep threat. Like he had like a very, very high rate of 15 plus air yard targets 2 years ago. But then this last year they sort of used him again in more of that like gadgety, remember, I feel like this is like becoming the Antonio Gates played basketball, but Curtis Samuel was a running back in college, right? So he's coming into the NFL as a very raw prospect. And I think as a result of that, he's never going to be like this super crisp route runner or a guy that is going to, consistently demand targets and he can create separation, but he's not going to be in the right place at the right time consistently for his quarterback. So I do think he has a big ceiling week to week as a player. But like you said, if he goes to a place like Washington or something, it's gonna be really hard to buy into something like that.
Yeah. Draft him. Have him as a bench player, drop him when you need something else. Like that's going to wind up being. There's just so many freaking wide receivers.
Yeah.
There's just you just are not going to need to live with the ebbs and flows of someone who doesn't have the traditional receiver skill set. Corey Davis, I guess, had a big year in a weird way. Like he did. I mean, there's no guess about it. I mean, it's his best year of his career. I've certainly ridden the rails with Corey Davis. I mean, I thought as a prospect, I was in. I really liked what he looked like, and I've been completely out since then. He made himself some money. I mean, he was a top 30 fantasy receiver, almost had 1,000 yards receiving. Really, I mean, he only scored 4 or 5 touchdowns. I can't remember what it was, but 4 or 5 touchdowns, or he would have had a much bigger season. A.J. Brown's just a significantly better player, but did we see some sort of real emergence with Corey Davis, in your opinion?
I don't necessarily think so, because part of me thinks that the expectations for Davis were always just really, really high, and he's been fine, like relatively fine. He just hasn't really come close to hitting those expectations. Because they were high for a good reason. He was the 5th overall pick in that draft, but I think he's just still more of like a complementary piece. I think that's why it worked a little bit more last year with A.J. Brown, being a second-year guy, Ryan Tannehill being there as a starter for the full season. If he can be a number 2, I think he's a decent enough complementary piece, but he's not someone that I'm going to be like eager to draft in fantasy.
Me too. And in fact, I did some film work on him and I tried to find examples of him beating coverage where the defensive back was actually trying to cover him as opposed to playing zone, and I couldn't really find any. I just don't think he gets open. I think, what I think he is? I think he's all those other Green Bay receivers. You mentioned one of them, right? MVS. I think he's all those guys where you're like, wow, okay, pretty good athlete, runs pretty good. How come he doesn't catch the ball? How come he's not open? That's weird. And it worked. It could work in Green Bay, for example. It could, like with a dominant other receiver. A.J. Brown's the one you really need to keep rolling coverage to and keep track of. And if you're just going to let Corey Davis kind of run against soft coverage and run a little slant where nobody's covering the slant, I bet he's going to catch it. Like, that's great. Yeah. But I am with you that I just don't think he's special. Nelson Aguilar, free agent from the Raiders, man. talking about the guy who couldn't catch a baby, as the meme goes, couldn't catch a baby out of a burning building. Thank goodness it wasn't Aguilar. Winds up as the pure number 1. I mean, by the end of the season, there was no question that he was the pure number 1 receiver for the Raiders. And like, he did pretty well with it. He looked like a different play, I guess. I don't know. Does he interest you as like in the right situation? I actually think maybe he's positive now.
Yeah, I just think that the thing is like the number 1 for the Raiders, because like what they did offensively, it's like all right, we're gonna have Hunter Renfrow and like Zay Jones run like 2 yards past the line and just sit there, and then we're gonna have Henry Ruggs and Nelson Aguilar just go deep, and then we're just gonna pepper Darren Waller. Like that's like how they generally ran that offense. And so I'll say this about Nelson Aguilar. I think that as a prospect, I didn't think he was that bad. And then obviously, I think a lot of his struggles have just been between the ears, because the physical traits have generally been there. And he's had some moments, right? Few and far between, but he's had some. He just can't do things consistently. And his drops, obviously, I mentioned earlier that I tend to not, overstate drops, but I think in the case of Nelson Aguilar, they were just so glaring that you kind of can't ignore them. So we'll see. I mean, he's not really someone that I'm like really, interested in.
Like super anticipating where Nelson Aguilar lands.
Right.
I am not doing that either. Nor am I doing it with Marvin Jones, the other Lions free agent receiver. And now that I think of it, the Marvin Jones Corey Davis comparison, it's probably not true. Marvin Jones is probably faster. But neither one really plays as physical as they should, given their size, and most of what they do tends to be against like invisible coverage, not coverage, zone coverage. But damn if Marvin Jones is getting a little old now. But damn if he doesn't score long touchdowns.
Yeah, I think that's the problem though, is that like players like Marvin Jones who because I think the difference between with Marvin Jones and Corey Davis, I feel like I've seen more of that physicality come out with Marvin Jones than I have with Corey Davis.
Yeah.
But with a player like Marvin Jones, when they age, it's just very difficult to trust them, right? Because they've used their body, they've used their body to manipulate defenders and such, and get those 50-50 balls. And that's just going to not be as easy when you're, in your 30s.
Yeah, he's 9 touchdowns each of the last 2 years. There are going to be people who look at the numbers and go, well, I mean, I think he turns 31 this year, so that's not too old for a receiver, but they do age, no question about it. He's had a really good career.
Yeah.
And he or his agent or somebody leaked and said, I want to play with a Super Bowl contender. Okay. So do I. That's all I can say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's like, I want to get paid and I want to play for a Super Bowl. Really, that's shocking. It's very shocking that you want money and to win.
If I had to lump I'm going to take Will Fuller out of it because it's obvious that he's in a different level from these other 4 guys. But Curtis Samuel, Corey Davis, Nelson Aguilar, Marvin Jones, one of them lands. You could make any one of them land in your favorite situation that any 4 of them are going to land in. Who would it be?
Probably Curtis Samuel, and I'm only giving him the edge there because of the rawness to his game, and maybe something clicks. I think we kind of know what Corey Davis is. We kind of have an idea of we definitely know what Marvin Jones is, and we have a pretty good idea of Nelson Aguilar. I just think that there's that ceiling component to Curtis Samuel that I would be intrigued by.
I might say Marvin Jones because even though I agree I'm not going to get a 1,300-yard season out of Marvin Jones, no question, but I might get a touchdown every other week out of him if it's perfect, right? If it's just perfect, if it's the right guy, the right quarterback, the right other wide receiver, he's not going to be a number 1. You can't sign him to be a number 1. But no, I mean, that's a group that we're not that excited about. And then I've just got the last little list for you here of some great names, but these guys are getting long in the tooth. Well, actually, one of them isn't, but he just seems like he is. I'm going to just treat them as a group. T.Y. Hilton, going to be free agent from the Colts. It's too bad. He could have caught passes from Carson Wentz. A.J. Green, my God. Are we going to bring A.J. Green back again? I hope not. Antonio Brown, to me, boy, did not look like Antonio Brown. Just didn't have that same level of quickness or speed. And then Sammy Watkins is the one who isn't as old, but probably his body is the oldest of the group. Anything of that group, if you get a kind of a fun landing spot for any of them, the one that's going to kind of make you go, oh.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, of those 4 guys, the one I would probably be most intrigued by is AB, only because of the fact that, his journey, right? And he came into the season halfway through, and you can at least make excuses for him where it's harder to make excuses for the other guys. But again, from a landing spot perspective, then I don't know if you can trust a landing spot of Antonio Brown literally anywhere outside of Tampa right now. So there's really nothing here, in my opinion, that I'm gonna get very excited about. It's just sad to see, these guys had good careers. Even Sammy Watkins to a degree. had great careers, but I don't think that they're going to be very fantasy relevant moving forward.
I'll maybe object. You're being nice just in case Sammy is listening. And he's only 28 this year, right? So I'm lumping him with the old guys. Like, he's had a really great career. I'm like, no.
He had a couple early on. Like, he was fine in Buffalo for a little bit.
He had one Tyrod year, like 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. We were all like, here it is. Here it is.
To be fair, like, we're going to look back and like Marvin Jones had a better career than Sammy Watkins. So maybe I should probably have not
like much better. However, exactly. Marvin Jones's career he's 31 and Sammy's 27 or 28. So there's still time.
So what we're saying here is the next 2 years, Sammy Watkins is going to go absolutely ham.
He has to, or else he just won't justify what, like, Marvin Jones is like a 5th round pick. I mean, Sammy Watkins is a top 5 overall pick, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was. Yeah. And let's face it, let's not rag on Sammy Watkins. He's gotten hurt. It happens. I mean, he's just one of those dudes who could never stay healthy, and it's too bad because I don't think anybody would say he was like a terrible player. It's just by now is probably diminished and you know, in the moment when he was in his prime and not that hurt, he kept getting hurt. Of that group, I think I agree with you. Brown will be back in Tampa. I kind of think that's why Godwin goes, just because you can't keep everybody, but maybe not. And like you could tell me, all right, age 33, like Brown can recapture some of that quickness, speed, whatever. I'm at least willing to watch it. I'd at least have my eyes open, but I'm with you that I would be relatively dubious at the prospect. I think we did it. I think we got through all the names that I wanted to get through. It was so lovely to have you back on the show, and if we can make the schedules work, maybe in July would be a good time because I can record like in an afternoon or something. You know, the stupid issue with this show is that I'm recording it so early in the morning my time, and you're like, dude, I'm recording my show then too.
I mean, like I eat dinner when you eat breakfast. I mean, that's just how it is now.
That sounds like something from Living the Stream.
It's definitely yes, exactly.
Except you guys are in the same time zone. So I hope everybody who's listening, thank JJ for coming on because believe me, you want to hear something stupid, JJ? Yeah. Here's something stupid. There's like Facebook groups and stuff devoted to this show, that's not the stupid part. I'm very, very grateful for that. But then in those groups, we'll get like conspiracy posts. Like the reason someone hasn't been on is because they made a bad call and Harris is mad at them or something like that.
No, guys, that's not the case. This is not the case. I promise you that's not the case. Chris has not sent me death threats. It's fine. I promise.
Or even fascist emails. You went all of 2020 without a fascist email. How did you make it through?
That's true. The only positive part of 2020, Chris.
Just getting the fascist emails. What an honor. Incredible honor. Just for that, I'm having you on in July, so you get it. So follow JJ on Twitter @LateRoundQB. Tell him how wonderful it was to hear him on this show. But also, please download the 2 shows that I mentioned, because I do. Every single episode is on my phone. I listen to them all. Late Round Podcast and Living the Stream. They're both great, and so is JJ. Thank you, man. I really am, so in all seriousness, really happy to have caught up.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to talk to you.
And thank you so much for listening. Let me also thank the 3 sponsors that we had on today's show. They're really, really good ones. I can recommend all 3. I have partaken quite liberally with all 3. HelloFresh, if you need that meal kit delivery, they are really great, delicious. Bespoke Post, I really do. Every month, look forward to getting that box. Never know what's going to be in it. It's really fun. And Hawthorne, if you're looking for kind of a way to make some sense out of your personal grooming needs, it's great because they'll send you a whole bunch of things that fit your body type, your lifestyle, all that stuff. I've got links to all 3 of those in the show notes of this MP3 file. You can always find all of our current sponsors at harrisfootball.com and find our promo codes and URLs. If this show works for you and you have the means to support one of the sponsors, it actually really makes a big difference. That's why they keep coming back. It's an indie show, and I'm not working on commission here. It's an advertising arrangement. When you use their codes, use my codes, I guess, on their websites, that means usually they tend to come back, and I really do appreciate all your support. That's going to do it for this week. It was so nice to talk to JJ and to talk to all of you. I'm so glad you're enjoying the show here in the off season. We're going to keep it going next week. I think we're going to do quarterback talk. There's been enough. I've addressed some of it here and there as it's happened, but we've got a lot of quarterback movement and lots of other rumors. So I think the lion's share of what we're going to see next week on the show is going to be about quarterback movement and maybe how we're approaching the quarterback that position for fantasy. JJ talked a little bit about it at the beginning of his interview. Not sure who the guest will be, and we'll see. News pending. Maybe there'll be some big news that happens over the next week. But I kind of like this continued conversation about players who may be switching teams or who already have switched teams. And we'll keep that conversation going with some quarterbacks, maybe some tight ends. I haven't worked it all out yet. I've got a week. Come on, get off my back. I love you. Thank you so much for listening. Until next week, please be well. Let's stay safe. Let's all stay connected if we can. I'll talk to you then.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The closing theme is Say Yes by The Wellspring. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.